What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Weekly Cheddar. Jake Shavinker, of course, with you guys. It is Friday. We are just over 24 hours until Packers-Niners. It should be a fun one. I'm excited. It's going to be, I think, at the very least, a fun game. I don't know. It's hard to not, maybe push the expectation limit a little bit higher this time around after beating Dallas. Also, chat, why you not coming here roasting me for my Dallas wins take while y'all picked the Packers last week? You should be doing that right now. But what I wanted to do tonight, and I know obviously there's going to be, the draft, and we're going to talk about prospects and whatnot. Maybe we want to talk about the prospects that were in, Dane Brugler's mock this week and in DJ's mock that came out today, Daniel Jeremiah's. I think that'd be fun to talk about for sure. But I wanted to kind of go through a little Packers-49ers preview because I wanted to look at, what can Green Bay do that some teams did to beat the Niners? Obviously, I didn't care about the last game of the season where they're playing backup quarterbacks in a Rams-Niners game that featured, Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold. Don't care about that. What happened in the 3-game losing streak? What happened in the Ravens game? That's what I kind of took a look at. So we're going to dive into that first. And if anybody's got, comments and questions and whatnot on that, that's where we're going to start. Maybe do 15-ish minutes on that, maybe a little bit less. We'll see. But that's where we're going to start for sure. And yeah, after that, we'll see where it goes. But obviously for those who, listen to Clayton or maybe you're coming over from the Couch Potato General Manager channel, they got stuff going on tonight as well. So I'm not going to stay on too long. I want you guys to obviously be over there too. So yeah, we're going to chat quickly about that. And I'm got some stuff to bring up, which will be fun to look at. I need to get to my bookmarks. Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay. So really quick, go through some comments. Chris, how's it going? Brian, how's it going? It's cool. Favorite time of week. Love that. Love that. Chris, as always, draft season was good today. Glad you enjoyed it. I know I wanted to save it almost for when Green Bay, if however you want to put it, Green Bay gets eliminated, right? I think to kind of, we'll probably go more in depth on the classes from 2022, 2023, just from a film perspective, later down the line. We're going to do it on here as well for a lot of those guys, but I wanted to give Goody a little bit of praise. He crushed it. 2020, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the Dillon pick was bad and the DeGuara pick was bad and Runyon isn't going to get a second contract and there really wasn't anything else in the draft class. It doesn't matter. Got Jordan Love. That's it. That's all it is. And then the last two have been absolutely incredible. So, yeah, he deserves it. Goody deserves it, man. And he's taken a lot of flack. There's no doubt. He's taken a lot of flack. And plenty of it is from myself. 2019. Didn't love the Savage selection. Did not like taking Jay Sternberger over Terry McLaurin at all. Like, that was tough to see. And, like, just not quite. I feel like Goody and I were not on the same page. Jordan Love was a conflicting pick for me because I'm like, well, I like Jordan Love, QB3 in class. If you need proof of that, I can bring up some tweets. And like, I like the player. I liked all the upside. I loved the idea of where Jordan Love can get to be an excellent player. I just didn't know. I was like, wow, this is what Green Bay does. They do this. This might work out even better. I wasn't on the same page as much in 2021. It was just kind of like Stokes and Myers, obviously, over Humphrey. I understood it, but like, obviously, I would have been totally fine with taking the better player. Rodgers over St. Brown's a tough one to swallow as well, especially in a trade up. So the 2021, I think a lot of people entering 2022 were kind of on the last leg with Goody. And I know I kind of explained this in the pod, but I wanted to get to it because, it's just brought it up. It's just like, yeah, it was like, wow, Goody has to figure it out in the draft. Like, these past 4 classes, you've got some guys and like everybody gets some studs, but can we see more? And he has delivered. So Brian W says, a few months ago, we were picking the top 10. Look at us now. It's crazy. 2-5, 3-6 to here. Final 8. Nuts. Also Tampa Bay, same thing. 3-6 for final 8. It's crazy. It is crazy. And like, I think that credit to LaFleur and Jordan Love and the offense and the youth for just staying patient and believing that the process was working and the results were just not coming because guys had to get used to things. It's a new level. It's a new scheme for a lot of these young guys. And so kudos to them for gelling and figuring it out and being here. Because I think we would have, if you said 3-6 and they said playoffs, you just be like, wow, we got in. That's awesome. Cool. Like that would be sick. And like if you said Jordan's good, we made the playoffs, sick. Like that was we would have taken that. And now we've won a game. And that's goodness sakes. It's like you never know, man. You never know. But I'm still picking the Niners this week. I'm still picking the Niners. I can't deviate. We can't deviate from the formula here. That's when, doing the thing. Adam says, there you go. That's just what I'm talking about. Shout out Jake for believing last week. But hey, that's what we want. That's what we want. I'm gonna keep going contrarian. I'm gonna keep believing against them. It's working. Knock on wood, right? So I'm gonna keep doing that. What's the pod? It's on the Packernet Podcast Network, Adam. I'll send you it. I can send you the link. I will send you the link after the show. Brian, obviously, here says draft season's all year round. Ben's giving some props to Goody here with "I love you, Dad." He's giving some props to Goody. We like that. Brian says what makes this 2022 draft so impressive. Say he was picking 28th in every round. Yeah, and was he? He was picking 28th. 2022, 2021 was the 1 seed. Right. Yeah. So they got the 2 picks from the Raiders and obviously maneuvered around. Yeah, there was a lot to like. I mean, you've landed Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker in the same class with Romeo Dobbs and Watson and hopefully a Devontae White that figures out how to defend the run would be really, really nice. But it's nice. It's a good class. It's good. And he might have said like, hey, I cooked with Watson and Dobbs a little. Watch me cook better with Reed and Wicks, which I think he has. So I think the Goody's just cooking. And I said on the pod too, and I'm not trying to spoil it for people who haven't listened, but like he's won to this point. It's dope. This is awesome. Do it again. Need to do it again. You want to get to the next step, keep going. Like don't let the foot off. It's all gas, no brake in the draft. All gas, no brake. Treat it like that. Treat it like, oh, last year's in the draft, I'm up 21-0 at halftime. I'm finishing the job. I'm going to go win this thing by 70, right? Like that's what he needs. That's the approach they should be taking. So Ben says need Brian as a guest spot. We did have him. As a guest spot. Just recently. It was last week. He'll be. I assume Brian will be back on very, very soon. So that's, I think, the move. Brian will be on plenty. Once we really get into off-season mode and draft season mode, when I get that LeBron look, when he's kind of leaning over, looking up, that's when it begins for me a lot more. Yeah, Adam, I'll send that. Ben says you're the most mysterious draft buff. People are drawn to you. I think you could be really good at like covering the draft and really good at like the ins and outs. But I think what makes like someone, to me, at least like Trevor Sikkema over at PFF, what makes him so good is he's entertaining while doing so. And that's what made Ben Solak so good too. He still does draft stuff, but he's like, the guys who cover the draft who are, I think, more enthused and just more charismatic about it. And like you really get into it and enjoy it, and you can just tell it's like a passion project for them. Those are the guys I enjoy listening to that also have all the info. It's great. So yeah, look at that. Brian even says he'll be back. Okay, so there's a couple quick things I want to talk about in this preview here really quick because and I want to show this because I think this is important and really interesting. So Max Toscano is a good follow for like collegiate stuff and scheme stuff for this. But I think this is super interesting, right? You look at the Niners. What are they doing here? We have Purdy Right. Obviously under center, but like look at the formation. Look what we're in. Debo is lined up at running back. Okay. You got Juszczyk lined up at wing tight end. You got George Kittle basically lined up as a slot receiver tight to the formation. Ayuk out wide, and then McCaffrey's out wide. Okay. So in theory, right? Obviously not technically, but in theory, you're in 11 personnel. Why are you in 11 personnel? Well, technically, you could say we've got receiver here, and a slot receiver and George Kittle here. You can count that, and you can treat Juszczyk as your tight end and McCaffrey as your running back. You can also be in 12, tight end, right? You can Juszczyk can be a tight end as well, right? Like that. That's another part. Okay. You could be at 21, 2 running backs. Juszczyk as a fullback. That also counts, right? Like, and you have McCaffrey out here, and then you have 1 tight end in Kittle. You're also technically, you can also be in 31. If you really think hard about this, 31 personnel, 3 running backs, 1 tight end. Yeah, sure. If you count Debo as a running back, McCaffrey as a running back, and Juszczyk as a running back, it works, right? 22 personnel. How do you do this? Is that even possible? How can you have 2 running backs, 2 tight ends? Running back, tight end, right? Juszczyk and Kittle are your tight ends. McCaffrey and Debo are your running back. This offense is stupid. This offense is stupid. Okay. And defending it is a pain. It is a pain to defend. Teams have found out, right? Dallas found out the hard way. Dallas and Green Bay are your shredders of that Dallas defense. Or San Francisco and Green Bay are your shredders of the Dallas defense right now. They went and shredded them, right? They can do that to anybody. So that's what sucks about defending this team right here. Just this bit. Just like this being actually true is just insane and correct. Like just insanity, right? So that's one thing, okay? So how do you defend that? And how the heck did the Niners lose 3 in a row? Well, we'll tell you. I watched, so they lose to the Browns in Cleveland. Excuse me. They lose at the Vikings on Monday Night Football. And then they lose at home to the Bengals. Okay, with Burrow, right? Obviously with Burrow. But what happened in those games? So I wrote a lot of notes down, and I'm going to try to just talk about it freely and just kind of remember all the notes. But like, first thing in the Brown game, what did the Browns do really well? Well, that's the other thing I wanted to show on this tweet. Okay. When I go in here, I want to show this one thing. Gosh, click on the post. Okay. So like, this is a great point, I think, to bring up in this. Okay. Is how do you do this, right? Like, how do you get tendencies off this personnel? Because you can get in different sets of the same personnel. This is a great point. You literally have to play nickel and hope your D-line dominates. That is exactly how the Browns did it. That's exactly what the Browns did, with a few tweaks here and there. But what the Browns did defensively, anyway, to beat this San Francisco offense, a couple things. One, they were disruptive enough and disciplined enough with their disruptive gaps in the run game. It freed up linebackers, safeties, all this guys. Even like they play Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, for those who know who that is. He's a little bit of a lighter linebacker. They had him in there in nickel defending the run, right? So they have an extra DB. They have Newsome, they have Emerson, and they have Ward out there as their corners, 2 safeties, right? And so what happened in that game is you got your linebackers, your JOKs that were shooting gaps. They were understanding where everything was going. They did a really, really nice job defending the run. They rallied to the football, and they tackled their butt off, okay? And then when they got into obvious passing downs, what did the Browns do? Couple things. One, they're good enough in man coverage where they can just man up. They were good enough. Emerson's good enough in man coverage to handle Ayuk, Debo. They handled Kittle in man coverage. They created smaller windows for Purdy. Purdy, and a lot of times on offense, you see San Francisco on offense. You're like, gosh sakes, Ayuk's wide open running down the field. George Kittle's wide open running down the field. How's that possible? What are they doing? And they're just a great job because teams have to play zone because they're scared out of their mind to play man coverage. And they should be. Debo's acceleration's unreal, okay? Brandon Ayuk is probably, to me, the most underrated receiver in the game right now. He's top 5 receiver to me. He is unbelievably talented. And then when you have one of the best zone field receivers in Debo, right? You have Kittle, who can operate like a receiver or a fullback on any given play, and then McCaffrey can run routes. So, like, teams are just not confident enough in their DB room to man up. Cleveland is. They did it. They manned up. They had in and out responsibilities, right? Where you have two corners, you have two skill position players, and you're like, all right, if these guys are going to cross, we're not crossing with them. We're just going to hand it off to each other. And they did that flawlessly for 4 quarters. Okay. And they had PJ Walker playing quarterback, and they won the dang game because they have a great defense, right? And they could line up in nickel. Their defensive line could get after it, right? You have Myles Garrett on that team. They did a great job. They found a way. And what's even funnier about this is the adjustments they made, because in that game, I want to highlight this. San Francisco came out, first drive of the game against Cleveland. They were like, all right, we're going to run it every time. They ran it every time other than once. And the one time they didn't run it, it was a play action shovel screen to McCaffrey for a touchdown. They just ran it down their throats. And that's what you can do against Cleveland. So Cleveland had to make some adjustments. They had to go, okay, well, our DTs are going to have to get further upfield. We're going to have to penetrate even more, take away a lot of anything that's pulling, any of the motion, and just get McCaffrey moving sideways. Don't let him, find something early and gash us for big gains. And they did that really well, especially on early downs. And so they got them into the place where they can go, oh yeah, we're in man coverage a lot. Excellent. We can handle this. And made the margin for error for Purdy's throws that much smaller. And they did a great job. And so, and I think they forced a turnover. And that's the other thing. Like, you're going to have to hope that there are some execution errors as well, because they did have some drops in that game, right? Purdy was a little bit off, even out of structure where he's been pretty good this year, even under pressure when he's been pretty good. You kind of have to hope that they're just a tick off on offense. And they were in that game. I'm going to keep going defensively, and then we'll kind of circle back to what teams did offensively. Minnesota, what did they do? They just put 6-7 guys on the line, right? And that's a Flores thing, right? They were like, okay, we're gonna muck up the front. We're gonna hopefully that we can handle ourselves in a 5-6 man front. In a pretty stacked box, we can handle ourselves against the run. They did a pretty good job overall, and they still gave up big plays here and there. It was just like, there are going to be times where you need that high variance to work in your favor, and it did. And what happened was, after that, right, is you get your linebackers, and they made some plays. Ivan Pace made some plays in that game for sure. Is when they get him into obvious passing downs, what does Flores do? He's still 6-7 guys up there, and he drops guys, and he mucks up windows for Purdy, and Purdy has to diagnose that post-snap while also handling the fact that Minnesota had some guys who could rush the passer, and they got some guys who could win one-on-one, and that's what Minnesota did, is they mucked up windows, and they won one-on-one long enough where they got some sacks, and they got him off the field a couple times. Because there was one play in that game in Minnesota, everything worked. They mucked up the window, they got pressure on Purdy, and yet Purdy scrambled for 17 yards on 3rd and 14. Sometimes it just doesn't work. It's unfortunate. It sucks. Sometimes it's just like, crap, we lost that one. We had it. It looked pretty good. And like, that was tough. And ultimately, like, I think Purdy as well in that Minnesota game, I think he got a concussion on a 4th and 1 sneak. Then he threw 2 picks after that. The first pick was wildly inaccurate. The second pick was a dangerous throw. And they got off the hook. They really, really did. So it's tough. You have to have a few things go your way, but you also have to be able to just a couple times win the run on early downs, and then be able to either just confuse and create something that isn't there in your coverage, and maybe rotate coverage, do something else. Like, obviously the Flores defense, they just stick guys up and they drop them into coverage, and you don't know who's coming, who's dropping into coverage, right? That was the Flores solution. The Cleveland solution was we can man up. Cincinnati did kind of a similar thing to Minnesota. The problem is Cincinnati gave up big plays all game, right? What they got lucky is they got lucky with a weird Purdy interception at the goal line. Really strange one, where it was just a very weird play they called. They got about 3 guys coming across the field. They were motion. They fake a little shovel pass, and Purdy just had nowhere to go, made a dumb decision. But what they did to get the other turnover is Logan Wilson at linebacker, murky player, just dropping into windows, kind of trying to read quarterback's eyes, and he got to some good spots, and he made a couple deflections. He picked off a pass. That was huge. So Cincinnati, they were a bad defense all year, but they got off the field a couple times. They got off the field on a 3rd and 1 early in the game where they had big dudes. They have, big guys in Reader, and they got BJ Hill, and they were like, all right, we just got to flow downhill. We're going to make this play on a 3rd and 1. Everybody's going to be assignment oriented. Everybody's going to rally to make a tackle, and they did. and they got off the field a couple times. They forced a couple turnovers, and they got off the field a couple times. And that was big. Okay. So defensively, there are ways, but you're just going to have to somehow on a couple possessions, either A, force a turnover, or B, just somehow get into a really good spot where it's 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14. You have enough bodies, and maybe you're rotating coverage to kind of confuse Purdy. Because what Minnesota did a good job is they muck up a window and they'd get pressure on him at the same time. And Purdy can't reset his feet in time to get to another throw on the opposite side of the field. So he kind of just had to let it go while his feet were in a bad position. Perfect. Inaccurate throws, get off the field. Okay. So offensively, there were obviously one of the teams had PJ Walker playing quarterback. Cleveland did. How did Cleveland handle it? Well, they kind of got lucky, right? They forced some turnovers, but they ran the ball well. They ran the ball well with Kareem Hunt inside zone. They got some things to the perimeter. They ran some toss plays, and that's going to be a big theme. Cleveland ran some toss plays that worked really well. They outflanked them on the perimeter. They were down blocking on some lighter edge rushers that San Francisco had, right? They weren't running at Bosa. Obviously, the approach changes a little bit when it's Chase Young on the edge rather than a Drake Jackson, and some other undersized guys who are playing out there. But they outflanked them with toss plays. They were able to get some gap runs in there where they just created the hole and said, get to it. And they were able to run the ball effectively enough to give themselves options on 2nd and 3rd down. Now, there were some big plays in the game where Amari Cooper just took over and said, I'm an alpha. I'm better than you at corner, and I'm doing this, and I'm going to win a couple of big plays. And he did. He won vertical, got like 8 yards of separation on a play, and then he went up for a ball in the air on another like 30, 40-yard play. So Cleveland had a bit of a trump card where they go, okay, we can throw up to our alpha. What else Cleveland did is, they would get into some play action, right? They're getting it under center. They're bringing linebackers in, but they're also taking advantage of a defense kind of like their own a little bit in Cleveland where they like to attack, right? You got a Hargrave. You got guys at Armstead that like to attack. And so they're running some screens, throwback screens, tight end screens to Njoku, right? They were getting him involved a lot. And so they kind of found ways to take advantage of the Niners' aggressiveness a little bit on defense while also kind of avoiding Warner. They didn't avoid Warner completely because he picked up a pass in the game off Walker. But Cleveland did a nice job. They after that turnover, they kind of managed things. They took some shots where they could. Minnesota, what did Minnesota do? Well, they had Cousins, right? And they were able to run the ball effectively. They ran a toss play on the first play of the game that went for like 15 yards. And you go, yeah, that's what they're going to have to do. You're going to have to ask your receivers to block well, right? Like you're going to have to, everybody's going to have to buy in. And I think Green Bay's bought in. I think they're a young team and they're buying in offensively, right? So Aaron Jones is going to have to be a big part of this. A.J. Dillon might also have to be a big part of it. Emmanuel Wilson, maybe he'll be a big part of it. They're going to have to run the ball well. And it's not just toss plays. I think inside zone, there are gap runs that worked for the Vikings in that game as well. But because they were running the ball effectively and they were staying under center, play action comes in. And they just let TJ Hawkinson dominate. Now, Addison had a big game as well, but they just let Hawkinson dominate. What they would do is they'd motion Hawkinson kind of into the formation, right next to the tackle. Maybe he's chipping, initially, but they're letting him late release into the play where they're clearing things out. Warner's down the field, right? They're kind of just saying, okay, Warner's going to be dropping. We'll just have Hawkinson do a late release, right? And we'll get 5-6 yards on a first down. We'll let him cross over the middle of the field. And this was big too, and I think this concept is important because I think how to attack this Niners team. Minnesota ran some wrap concepts. And if you've watched Clayton's thing or you followed, stuff, I talked about it a little bit in like my Jordan Love film room last year when he played against Philly, is what you have you have an inside guy running like a little curl route. And then the outside guy will run a deeper in, like a basic route. And what that curl route is designed to do is to suck that linebacker in, right? And it creates that window behind the linebacker. They did that a few times in that game against the Niners. It worked really well. It opened things up in the middle of the field. So did kind of tying guys down underneath, right? They would have the running back run to the flat. They would have one of their two tight ends run into the flat. And that would, and it would cause guys that they had to come, they had to sink down. They had to respect the check down because Cousins got to it a lot in the game. And now you got guys running over the middle of the field. Hawkinson, Addison doing the same thing. And a lot of crossers, right? A lot of the shallow crossers, because at least it's something to either bring the linebackers down, or if they don't come down, you have an easy throw on a first or second down, get you to something more manageable. And that's what Minnesota did a lot in that game too. And Yes, they got lucky a little bit. Addison took a pick away and went 60 yards for a touchdown, which is sick. But they also just let Hockenson win one-on-one. They had him ISO. They had him running option routes where he's just like, okay, where's leverage? I'll run here. Where's leverage? I'll run here, and finding space. And so they did that a lot too. And they did take some shots, right? They had Osborne win a couple times down the field. So there was just a lot going on. And that's important. The play action with so much going on, getting 5 involved in a concept, I think is going to be massive. It's going to be massive because it's got their linebackers thinking about a lot. Linebacker play is probably going to decide this game, genuinely. It probably will. So really quick, as I grab some water, really quick to finish this, what did Cincinnati do? Right? They dropped 31 points on the Niners. What did they do? Well, they're not an under center team a lot, right? They don't like that. Burrow doesn't like to be under center. He likes to be able to see everything going on in front of him. Okay, so they're in the gun a ton, but they were able to run the ball effectively with Mixon, right? Gap runs, let Mixon pick up 15, right? Zone runs, let him toss it out, right? And also teams got into the jet motion and they were able to get to the perimeter on a few plays. Minnesota did that. Cleveland did that. Cincinnati did it. Cincinnati also basically in their own version of things, RPOs, right? We don't have play action under center. We'll run some RPOs. We'll bring the linebackers in, and that split second, because we're running the ball so effectively with Mixon out of the gun, we're going to bring these linebackers in. That's going to open things up. Burrow's going to hit these things short, right? These little hitch routes behind an RPO, right? They were throwing wide receiver screens and letting guys block, right? Because they have a good run for catch player in Jamar Chase. There were 2 times in the game, because I watched the broadcast and I also watched the all 22 as well. And there were a couple times in that game where almost like, oh, this is the longest catch by this tight end all season. Irv Smith was that, and they're like, oh wow, look at the tight ends getting involved. And so they were able to do that because there's so much to respect. And like they had a play action shot where you're running T Higgins to the post. You have Boyd running that crosser. It's obviously a staple in this offense, and the deeper 2-man concept. And Higgins is kind of breaking off the post underneath the safety, and Burrow's hitting that shot. So like Burrow is dialed in. He completed like 18 or 19 in a row in that game at one point, because they were just running RPOs and they were just putting the linebackers in conflict. They were getting guys out to the perimeter, and they were running the ball effectively. So like all of that to say, like that's kind of like what we're sitting at right now. Like you just have to have a lot working against the defense, because there are going to be times where the defense mans up. They're going to man up in coverage sometimes. They might do it against Green Bay because they're maybe not convinced that some of these guys can win against man coverage. I know a lot of people like to call Romeo Doubs the man coverage killer. It could be Wicks, but speed might be a big factor, and Jordan Love might have to hit some big plays. And I think the other thing about the Minnesota game that I want to bring up is Cousins was off his back foot a few times in that game, off of play action, because pressure's coming. Jordan Love has better arm talent, right? He has better arm talent than Kirk Cousins. He does, right? He has more velocity on the ball. He can change the arm angles more. And so off his back foot, he can still put enough velocity on the football. So that's helpful. Being that kind of trick shot artist that he is, he can do some of those things, and that's important. But like I think with Cousins, he was doing that, and he was still making good throws. So you're going to have to be precise in this game. There are going to be some tight margins offensively, but if you run the ball well, maybe they're going to be. If you watch the game over, right, you saw them fake Aaron Jones back into the backfield. They were motioning him back. They faked that. They threw it back to him on the perimeter. Let the 3 receivers block. Plays like that. That's a lot of what the Bengals did, right? They were getting on the perimeter. They were forcing your DBs to make plays. That is important. So if you can run the ball in this game, I think they're going to open up a lot offensively. Defensively, like I was talking about earlier, you're just going to have to win some early downs against the run and maybe muck up some windows, and you're going to have to win some one-on-one matchups. Like Clark, Wyatt, Slayton, they're going to have to win some one-on-ones in the run game and as pass rushers. That's how it has to be. So you're going to need to get some pretty good performances. That's just how it's going to win. And that's how you're going to win this game. And probably as well, I think the other thing, right, is you're going to have to play. You're playing from behind is not a good thing. The Browns were behind in their game, But the Bengals got out to a lead. The Vikings, they got out to a lead. The Ravens, they got out to a lead. They got some high variance interceptions, but they also gave Purdy some different looks post snap defensively. And you got guys, Kyle Hamilton, who are making just freaking absurd plays because, he's an insane player, and I wish we had him on our team. I really do. But the Ravens didn't even run the ball that well. That's what's scary. They didn't run the ball well. Lamar was really the run threat, and they were just they were doing a lot of things. Crossers, right? If you saw man, it was like crossers. Okay, how do we get them to communicate? We'll find something open, right? But middle of the field mattered, and they tied things down. But like I said, the Minnesota, they had 2 tight ends out there a lot. Cleveland ran out of 2 and 3 tight end sets. So I think Kraft and Musgrave and even Sims are going to be a big part as well in this game. There's just a lot going on. And so hopefully that was, hopefully that made sense. I know there wasn't, I wanted to diagram it. I just didn't have time to be able to put a lot of plays up and talk about it. But hopefully that was a decent synopsis of what's happening and how Green Bay, it's going to take a lot for this to happen. So, okay. I'm going to catch up on some comments here really quick. Adam says he loved the Ben and Trevor pod. Yeah, Locked On NFL Draft was so good when they were there. Brian Solak just talks about cheese now. Adam, sounds like a lot of good DCs. Yeah, Jim Schwartz is a good DC. He's got his scheme, and he sticks to it. Cincinnati's scheme is not, just they fell apart. Brian, I don't want this Green Bay DC. I don't want that responsibility. I don't. Adam says hope for rain. That would be tough. Brian says linebacker play will decide this game. That's what I said. I think that is probably going to be a big part of it, because when you look at defensively, how it worked for especially for Cleveland and especially for Minnesota, both of those teams were basically okay, we need our defensive linemen to win some one-on-ones in the run game. We need our linebackers to fill well, and they need to diagnose what's actually coming to them and make a play or two. And they did that. That's what's going to have to happen. Walker, hopefully McDuffie plays. Campbell, they're going to have to make plays downhill. They're going to. That's the way you have to rally to the ball, gap integrity. If somebody's disruptive, you have to be able to read where McCaffrey's going a lot of times and just sometimes just make a darn play. It sucks saying that. It sucks being hey, listen, I'm just not sure we have all the answers to this offense. They're probably going to put some points on the board. You just got to find, one drive here or there, run the ball, shorten the game on offense. And then at some point, you just got to find a way in one series to be oh, yes, we got an early down run stop. This is great. Now we're going to just kind of we'll show single high. We'll drop into 2 high and we'll kind of muddy up the passing windows for you. And maybe Gary or Preston or Van Ness can win one-on-one, or Wyatt can win one-on-one on a 3rd and 11 or a 3rd and 8. And Purdy gets sacked. And it sucks that it's just going to come down to we're just going to have to beat you one-on-one in some spaces. But that's what's going to happen. It has to happen. And a turnover would be even better, right? It's going to be more challenging than Dallas. It is. Dallas is Dallas has to be a front runner. They absolutely have to be a front runner. The Packers did exactly what they needed to do in that game. Get ahead, put the pressure of 28 years without, 27 years, 28 years without making a conference championship game all on the shoulders at home. That was it. The Niners are just not going to fold like that. They are not going to. They are not going to fold like that. They're better than that. So it probably is. And Greenlaw playing and Warner and finding a way to either tie them down with 5 guys in the route, or you got late releases, guys like Tucker Kraft who might be valuable in this game, getting open against zone coverage, running after the catch, picking up what you can in some spots. That's going to be important. So whatever the linebackers are going to give you, if you can get out in 5-man concepts off play action, that's going to matter too. Every inch is going to matter, especially on early downs. It's just that's how it goes. And that is what it's going to take for the Packers to get it done. It sucks. It sucks not just being hey, we got the formula. We know how to win. We know how to beat this team. Right? We're not playing the Lions. It stinks. We're not playing the Lions. Now, if we win, we might play the Lions next week, and then there's more to talk about with them. But it's going to be a lot tougher. It's not an easy team to beat. 3 teams got away with it. Just that was the formula. Goose said, hit me with the knowledge. Goose, if you want to go back, I would talk for like probably 25 minutes on this and just like what happened during that losing streak, Goose, of like, okay, this is what the Browns did on both sides of the ball, the Vikings did on both sides of the ball, and what the Bengals did on both sides of the ball in that 3-game losing streak. And that's so if you want to go back 20 minutes and just listen to all that, I don't blame you. So like I kind of went through as much as I could about those games because it's like, what happened? Why did they lose? Like it's a big deal. You got to find some kind of formula, and the formula is just kind of like, well, you just probably gonna have to execute and get a couple stops that you may otherwise not, depending on who you're playing, and it's tough. Ben asks, why does it seem like linebackers are getting value again in higher draft stock? It might seem that way, right? But when you look at like linebackers in the draft recently, might just pull up some past drafts, but like if you look at the linebacker position, you don't see a lot going in round 1 unless they're like just they're not like they're superheroes basically, right? Like you just look at like past drafts, right? Obviously this past draft, right? When you look at the linebacker position, Jack Campbell goes in the first. Should he have gone in the first? Probably not. Like probably shouldn't have gone in the first. Let's be honest. He was a nice run. He was a nice player coming downhill who made a few plays in coverage that got some highlights, whereas the full coverage story for Campbell wasn't super good. And that's the worry, right? With Campbell. And so you go back further, right? You go back to the previous one. You go to the 2022 draft, right? Who went in the first round at linebacker? Quay Walker did, because the Packers are betting on athleticism, right? That Quay Walker went there, big, strong, fast. Still got to figure it out on the mental side of things, and like all the eye candy and all that stuff that teams are going to throw at him. He has to figure that out. He has to worry about run fits, like that. It's still not quite there. Devin Lloyd went in the first round. Jags traded up for him. Like he's a solid player. He is a solid player. He lined up rushing the passer sometimes at Utah. From what I've heard, I think he had a better second season, which is good. But like ultimately, like he's not a superhero, right? And so these guys at the end of round 1, like that's fine. I don't think we're quite at the level that we might not ever get there unless like we get like uber talented players at the position, right? Because I mean, you look at linebackers that win the first round in 2021. Parsons, he's playing on the edge. He's rushing the passer, right? He's not playing linebacker anymore. So like that kind of renders that like moot. And then what happened? Because there's just so much variance. If you look at like the draft variance with linebacker, it's one of the ones where it's so tough to figure out. Like why are the hits and misses like almost equal, or like look like a weird roller coaster in like certain spots with all the data? It's hard. Like Zaven Collins was a first round pick for Arizona. Nope, not good. Not great, ladies and gentlemen. Like it was hard to figure out where he was going to play. Is he going to rush the passer? He's a big dude, right? Is he going to rush the passer? Is he going to stay off the ball? Jamin Davis for Washington. That has not worked very well, unless he's playing, more will linebacker. Was it worth it in the first round? Probably not, right? Like the linebacker position does matter, right? For defenses that, are going to rely a lot on coverage, are going to rely a lot on like you're fitting the run. We're not getting more guys in the box. We need you to do it. So like certain schemes are going to value linebacker a little bit more than others. But I don't think, based on like you're just looking at like data in general, it just doesn't scream to me like, oh, we have to take one in the first round, because it's just the data doesn't back that up. Like the data backs up taking QB at number 1 overall relative to everywhere else. Because everybody talks about, oh, this is super cool. Like this guy was a sleeper and he hit on day 3. Like, oh, look at Brady and Purdy. Yeah, there's like 900 other ones that didn't work. But like the data for linebackers is super weird. Go back to 2020 really quick. Isaiah Simmons went 8th. He went 8th overall to the Cardinals. Can you tell me what team he's on? He's not on the Cardinals anymore. I'll tell you that much. Because they didn't know where to play him. They didn't know, is he playing safety? Is he playing, will linebacker? Is he playing overhang? Is he doing it like, where's he playing? If you can tell me, someone can probably tell me what team he's on. But like, don't look it up. Don't cheat. But like, it's a position it's where it just struggles with like, okay, there's so many of the guys where you're like, oh wow, this is like just a tremendous athlete. Where do we play him? That whole discussion. That's been a lot of questions with a lot of these linebackers in the first round. The other two in that draft that went in the first round, Jordan Brooks from Seattle, who's pretty decent, And then Patrick Queen, who it took forever for the Ravens to be like, okay, oh, he's a will linebacker. He needs to be in coverage. He needs to work off the ball more, not coming downhill. And they're like, all right, well, we'll grab Roquan Smith via trade. And now he's cooking, which is great. But you look at a lot of the other linebackers in the league, like Fred Warner, 3rd-round pick, right? Logan Wilson, who I think is decently underrated for Cincinnati, 3rd-round pick, right? Obviously, Roquan Smith won the first. Big deal for sure. I don't think Quincy Williams for the Jets, who was first team All Pro, right? I can't imagine he was 98th overall in 2019. Like Leo Chenal's doing pretty decent for the Chiefs. Nick Bolton doing well for the Chiefs. Like they've got decent linebackers. They were all drafted on day 2, so it's tough. It's tough. It's valuable, but it's hard to value it in the first when there's so much variance at the position. So that was a long-winded answer to that. Brian says I don't think they are. Just Goody has changed Packers' philosophy at linebacker. Yeah, a little bit with Quay for sure. And I think they need to be in on this linebacker class, even though it's pretty shallow. So Brian also says that Love is better drip than Cousins. Emilio, what's going on? Says love what you're cooking up right now, Jake. Great takes. I appreciate it. Hope you got to join in time to hear all of the spiel on how to stop this team. I'm almost certain Clayton's live soon, unless he's not. Maybe he isn't tonight. Oh, guess he's not. I thought he was. That's why I started early. Anyway, United Bates, what's going on? Good to see you in the chat. Brian says Arizona messed up with Simmons. Yeah, a little bit. I think it was tough. It was tough to figure out like where his best spot was, and it was just probably like doing kind of what JOK is doing in Cleveland. Maybe a little bit else. Like it was just kind of like, oh, he can't play safety. I just don't think it was designed to play safety. Maybe Simmons needs to be doing what Hamilton's doing, at least a lot in Baltimore. So yeah, Chris and Adam both got it. Isaiah Simmons is on the Giants. Adam says linebackers are the running backs of the defense. Yeah, I mean like that's I think those two positions, and teams have just not caught on that. I think safety matters more than it does. The Ravens were kind of just like, all right, you gonna give us Hamilton? Okay, cool. We'll cook. We will cook with Kyle Hamilton. And I get it, like it's to some degree with like safety is like, well, you better know he's really, really good. Right. And you better know that like if you're picking him in the first, he needs to be really, really good. And I get that. And it may have been Adam who said that. I don't remember who said that. It was several shows ago. We were talking about that. But like there's some guys where you just look at him and you're like, yeah, that guy is it, man. Javon Holland was one of those guys. Like he was just really good. And he wasn't even, and what was interesting about him is like I was like kind of like when you watched him, you're kind of like, oh, like he's just really good at a lot of things and he's versatile. And then Miami was like, yeah, but he can play single high too. And you're like, what? Really? And then he was just playing single high really well at high level as a rookie. Super good stuff. So like safety is another one that kind of people lump into this. I think people are starting to kind of put guard in there too. But like it's interesting. And I think, yeah, people probably put tight end in here too. Goose, that's a good point. Tight end's another one where it's like if it's round 1, like he better be phenomenal. And like even like this last draft, like we were looking at it and we're like, these top 6 tight ends are really, really good. There's some few other options, Schoonmaker, Strange, Zach Kuntz. Like there were other guys in the draft where you're like, wow, this is pretty deep linebacker, this pretty deep tight end class. And then the first one goes to Buffalo like 25 or 26. You're like, holy smokes, like nobody wanted him because they were talking about him to Green Bay. Right? There was so much talk about like, oh, tight end to Green Bay, 13, yeah, or 15, and before the Rodgers trade, and then 13 after that. Then the 2 days they could talk about it, it's like, oh, tight end at 13. It's kind of like I don't think so. But like they were talented, and Kincaid's had a good year, and Laporta went in the second round. He's had a good year. Mayer less so, but there were some moments. Musgrave and Kraft, second and third round. Darnell Washington was a 3rd round pick. Like really good class, and it's proving to be so. It's just nobody's like, yes, we better take it early. And the conversation with Brock Bowers is going to happen with that again. And it's a fair conversation to have because, Kyle Pitts, right? Like that's Kyle Pitts right there. Like that's oh my gosh, you better take him high. And the Falcons were like, all right, bet we'll take him at 4. And And it's kind of like, it's year one was good, but like, what's going on? Arthur, I think Arthur Sith, not Arthur Smith, is a great way to. He is of the dark side for sure. So maybe it'll get better in Atlanta with Pitts going forward, which we hope so. But like it round one tight ends, like OJ Howard was a first round tight end. Evan Ingram was a first round tight end. Evan Ingram's kind of found that rejuvenation with he's rejuvenated his career a little bit. He's revitalized it with the Jaguars, which is really nice. It took Njoku a long time. And to be fair, he was a basketball player with a lot of athleticism playing tight end position, so it's understandable that it took that long. Like it took that long though, but he's really good now. And like he was a first round pick. Nice. And so yeah, tight end is a lot like that where you have to figure out like, okay, is this guy actually worth it? Like how much is he going to be valuable to our offense? Is he worth taking at this spot? Like Brock Bowers, I think he is. But you know, probably in 3 years we'll be like, wow, look at this tight end that went in the third round that's better than Brock Bowers. It'll be ridiculous. That definitely happens. United Bates says PTA is off tonight. I did not know that. I thought for sure that Clayton was going to be on, but it must be just the preview tomorrow. Oh yeah, it's 2 nights before game day. I feel like he was. Never mind. I'm getting off topic, but anyway. Yeah, it's cool. Cool to have you guys here because I know you guys aren't always here unless you're not commenting. United Bates and Emilio. Unless you're not commenting, you're just chilling, which is fine too. Yeah, Brian says Goody changed the Packers linebacker thresholds. Yeah, there was a significant change, and you know if people are interested in that, Brian, don't comment what that change is. Let's talk about it on a future one of these. So the folks have to come back. Little tease right there. But yes, they have changed slightly, and it's interesting to look at all the linebackers they've taken and just be like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, Bowers is that unicorn for sure. He really is. He's probably a better blocker than he's given credit for. It doesn't mean he should be like in line on every play or anything like that, but he does well, and he's exceptional hands, exceptional bursts. Like it's really fun to watch him. Yes, he did, and it's not something, Adam, where it doesn't like it won't jump out to you until it jumps out to you, if that makes sense. Like it won't jump out until it jumps out, and they're like, oh, I didn't think. It's like, oh yeah, it's not, you know, it's not like you know, at one point they were drafting 240 plus only, and then they drafted 215-pound guy, and you're like, oh wow, whoa, that's weird. Yeah, it's not like that. It's not like that. But Brian says sounds like a plan. He's in. We'll talk about linebackers at some point. So yeah. Do we want to talk about more about the draft here, or does anybody have? Right, we're Q&A. We're Q&A tonight, right? That's what we are tonight. So like anything on the Packers-Niners game, want to talk about that? Anything else, divisional round or the draft, of course. You can do any of that. So yeah. Oh, Emilio says, Jake, so you like Peyton Wilson from North Carolina at linebacker? I like him. The film is good. Like the film is good for Peyton Wilson out of North Carolina State. Like he is really, really good. But also he's been in college for 6 years and he's got a lot of injuries. So yeah, 2023 was his 6th year in collegiate ball. And yeah, that's but otherwise like I like him for it. I don't know if Green Bay is going to be thrilled with all the medical stuff like Brian's talking about here. But he is very good. Wilson is very, very good. He had this past year for him, incredible season, incredible. Like he had like 6 sacks, he had like 22 pressures, right? Like his missed tackle rate's the lowest it's ever been. Like goodness sakes, it is. He was so dominant, and I would love to have him. Would love to have him. He PFF lists him at 6'4", 238. That's within, you know, like it's really good. He kind of the size thresholds are fine, right? You look at like, oh, I think Campbell's in like the 230s. So like, and obviously Quay Walker's near 240. So like he's big enough to be in that range. It's just the age. It's like 24 and then the medicals. That's the only thing. But yeah. Um that's Dr. Peyton Wilson to you. That's really good. That's good. Oh, Jumosk tweeted that out. He did. That's funny. That's funny. That's really, really good. It's really good. Oh yeah, there is a tight end in his eighth year at Miami. Goodness sakes. Brian, unfortunately, I don't think I have eligibility. See, the problem is I was before COVID, so I don't get COVID years, right? Like that's where the eligibility runs out. I didn't get that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, he tweeted about the Miami tight end. That's better. That's even better. That's even better. Okay, yeah. Let's do this. So there's a few things we'll get to. Goose said DJ's pick in his mock. Let's hear about it. Okay. For those who don't know, why don't you want me to bring it up on the screen? We'll bring it up on the screen. Let's do that. Let's bring it up on the screen, shall we? DJ mock draft. Where it at? DJ mock draft. 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 Here we go. Okay. And there are other questions down below. I see them. I will get to those, I promise. From Scott and from Brian. I will get to those comments for sure. Let's look at this really quick, right? Obviously, DJ top 3 QBs come off. Marvin Harrison, Adunze over Neighbors. It's interesting. I don't like that one bit, to be honest. I think Neighbors, I would potentially just take him at 4. It does seem like Joe Alt, everybody thinks he's tackle 1. Both Brugler and DJ believe this. Okay, interesting. Does seem like the edge rushers are going to probably start around this area. Seems like Turner's a consensus 1. The most interesting part, I think, is Fashanu going 13th and Fuaga going 10th. Mad. That's crazy. The Byron Murphy train. Folks, we're here. We're here. He is so good. And I think he's much more well-rounded player than Jerzon Newton is at defensive tackle. Seems like Terry Arnold is corner 1. That's a Brugler and DJ thing. That sucks. I think he's their best fit at corner, to be honest. Green Bay's anyway. That sucks. It really does that he's going to go this high. He probably should. Good player. Bo Nix to New Orleans is mad, by the way. Holy cow. It does seem like that. Len Zerline tweeted this. He's like, I'm going to be higher on Bo Nix. And then Matt Waldman, if anybody knows who that is, said the same thing. He's like, cat's out the bag. It looks like there's going to be people higher on Bo Nix. Might be a guy that we come away from Senior Bowl week going like, yep, everybody loves him. Bowers, 15th of the Colts. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that offense? They were going to bring back. It'd be sick if they had another receiver to this room, too. But, like, if they bring back Pittman, you have Pittman, Pierce, Downs, Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, Brock Bowers. And they love to fill the O-line. They won't skimp on O-line. Ballard won't. I just don't think Ballard's going to hang on to this pick because he doesn't have a lot of picks in this draft. But anyway, Troy Fontenot, who I know Ryan brought him up on a pod. I've brought him up on Weekly Cheddar, of course, a bunch. And like Ryan did on like, is he the fit? And he talked about that on like a Friday at some point. Brugler had him to Green Bay. I think that's a little bit better fit than the guy that DJ has there, I will say, because I think there's the guard tackle positional flexibility is nice, and like he can play tackle. I'm not worried about him playing tackle, to be honest. Quinyon going this early sucks as well. He's a really nice fit in Green Bay too. That really stinks. Latham, Latu going 19th. Amarius Mims will be in that conversation. Probably won't be. He won't be on Green Bay's board, I don't think. Mims or Tyler Guyton, I don't think he will be either. But these guys are going to go highly. Miami going receiver to me is, you got to be kidding me. I get it. Like Waddle, Hill, and Thomas is nuts. By the way, that's nuts. But like, come on, please draft offensive linemen. Chop is polarizing for sure. Jordan Morgan this high is interesting, and then we get to our guy here. Okay. Let's talk about Graham Barton. Do we want to we'll talk about Graham Barton. But anyway, really quick to finish it, like DeGene was still on the board for Green Bay. Jerzon Newton was still here. He goes to the Bills. Nate Wiggins was available. McKinstry was available. A little shocking. But like that happens every year, right? It happens every year where you go, oh, this guy's available and we passed. Why would we do that? And it's like there's some reason, right? So it's here's the thing with Barton. I think his 2022 was really, really good. He's given up just 4 sacks in the last 2 years at left tackle, where he's played the majority of his career, the last 3 years, 100% he's played at left tackle. He's got 2,134 snaps there. Yes, I'm reading off PFF. Don't worry about it. I've got thoughts on him that don't include this, but I want to include it. So he's played 2,134 snaps, like I said, at left tackle. He's played 430 at center, which I think is interesting. And a lot of people view him as a center. Brugler talked about this a little bit way back when he was kind of releasing big boards and Barton was on it. He's like, well, teams are probably going to view him as an interior player. Could be guard, could be center. He obviously has experience at center, which I think is, very interesting. What I think about Graham Barton is I love the quicks. I love what he offers in pass protection with the quicks, with the agility to mirror. There's so much that the technique, bending the knees, like he's not, he's not a waist bender, like fundamentally and with quickness, agility, balance, like he is really, really good, right? Like he is good. The problem is, right, when you look at this, okay, is we talk about arm length as being a big thing. And like some people are like, well, arm length doesn't matter. He's a really good player. Here's the problem. Yeah, arm length, there are some times where it's like it doesn't matter for some guys. There's a select few where they go, okay, his arms are a little bit shorter than we'd like, but he's just so dominant with technique and everything like that we're like, that's fine. And it works out okay. The problem is Barton, when you even look at 2022 film against Clemson, against Florida State, right, where Verse and Miles Murphy and guys like this are getting to the long arm, right? They're getting to that move. He can't handle it because he can't reach out and grab anyone because he just doesn't have the arm length to do it. So when guys are like, sometimes it'll be the two hand, right? It'll be just explosion to power for a defensive end going after Barton, and Barton just can't. He can anchor a little bit, right? But he can't grip anything. There's nothing he can hold on to because he can't reach the shoulder pads because he's the guy across from him has got longer arms, and like that's the problem. Now, if the Packers were actually going to go like center and they believe that Barton's a guard and he can play all 5 positions, I just don't know if they're going to look at him and be like, and this is the right here, 32 inches. Are they going to believe he's going to play tackle? Are they going to? That's the one thing where you're like, okay, sure. And a lot of people are going to bring up Zach Tom, and I get it, right? He is, and Barton's a little bit heavier at like 314-ish. He's 6'5". So like that part of the equation fits Green Bay's thresholds. The size stuff is fine. He's 6'5", 314. That's perfectly fine. That's in Rasheed Walker range, right? The problem is Zach Tom had 33.25-inch arms. We can work with that. 32 is what Stepaniak had. Okay. Cole Madison had 32 and a quarter. Okay. So like they're on the shorter side, and Goody to draft them, right? They played on the interior. So if they want to take a guard, if they want to do the guard thing, right? And they're like, oh, he's going to guard. And like they believe that he can play guard and he's also potentially going to play center. And like that's our backup plan at center. I'm sitting there like, okay, that's fine. Like maybe he's BPA at that spot. I don't know if he's better center than Jackson Powers Johnson. I don't think he is. Obviously, you'd have to go back to 2020 to find that out. Jackson Powers Johnson can move people, maybe. And like Barton's splits, other than being a really, 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 really good run blocker in 22, according to PFF, has been solid. Like solid to decent, pretty good. But the pass blocking is where he succeeded. And then you look at him being a better pass blocker, more often in his career than not than a run block, and you go, oh, that's a Packer. fair, understandable. But like at the same time, like when the long arms and the stuff like that, like Zach Tom figured it out. There were times where Zach Tom lost to length as well at Wake Forest. He did. He lost to it. But he figured out how to handle it to the point where he wasn't getting beat that way. And there are ways to like handle your punches or attack different way or like present something different to a player where it's tougher for them to get to that point where they've beaten you. And that's what makes Zach Tom so effective is he has an answer to like, okay, I don't have the longest arms, but how can I prevent losing in this way? And he figured it out. I'm not sure. I don't think Barton can figure it out, and that's the problem. So if they want to go an interior player, that's fine. And maybe at 25, that's the best available, and they think it is. And that's, we're going to play him on the inside. Okay, fine. I don't think they're going to draft him to see him as a tackle, right? And DJ does highlight, like, Barton meets the Packers' criteria for offensive linemen in terms of intelligence and versatility. That's fair, right? Intelligence, versatility, pass blocking ability, quicks, agility, all the athleticism stuff he does. The arm length is the problem. And Brian has highlighted this very, very well in a lot of comments here, right? So, I mean, Brian, they don't until they do, right? They don't until they do. Where we're sitting here in 2022. They don't draft linebacker in the first. They don't draft 24-year-olds in the first. Then they did that. So it's like they don't do it until they do it. Maybe they think he's the best player. That part I'm not going to argue. Maybe he thinks he's the best player, best fit, right? And that happens. Okay, we'll get back to this. I want to get to a couple more questions here and comments that are further back. Scott S says, "Who is Fred Warner in this draft?" I'm not.
Sorry. Microphone issues.
Okay, microphone should be back. It just unplugged. Sorry about that. The Fred Warner in this draft, I mean, the guy who can do like everything, the Fred Warner, if there was one, to me, it's like Peyton Wilson or it's probably like Edgerrin Cooper. Those would be the two guys where I'm like, maybe they could both ascend to that point. I think those two are the two. Otherwise, like I'm not sure. I'm not sure who would be doing that. So that's what I would say in that regard. Oh, this mic, I hate when this thing resets because then the thing just resets and I gotta do all this stuff. Okay. So yeah, Edgerrin Cooper or Wilson, Brian W. highlights would be nice in round 3. I don't know if Cooper's gonna last that long. I think Wilson will. Yeah, I mean, I think DJ being a big Byron Young guy, like, is because the NFL is, and like that, and Brugler putting him at 16 to Seattle, like it's very clear that the league has already locked on to the point of like Byron Murphy's really, really good, and you could tell like he's dominant, and he was really. There wasn't kind of a game where you look at his season, you go, gosh, there was no game where it felt like he took a game off, and I get, and this is the thing that's interests me, and I did bring it up on the pod today, but like he has way less snaps than Newton does this year. He has like 430 some snaps or 440 or something like that, and you go, that's a lot of snaps, but Newton had like 730, right? So he's not getting as many reps because Texas is rotating their guys in and out, right? You'll see them play 4 defensive tackles. Same with Sweat. So Sweat won't have as many snaps either, but he's putting up similar pressure and sack numbers to Newton with way less, 300 less snaps. That's nuts. Okay, so his pressure rate's better than Newton's. Now Texas has obviously more guys who are, threats out there than Illinois does, to be honest. Illinois had Gabe Jacobs, but I think he's transferring. So like, but he's dominant. He's really, really good. And Brian highlights it here. He's a beast. He destroyed Alabama center. Alabama center, obviously not the greatest. But yeah, and Bo Nix is the new Ryan Nassib. That's funny. That's possible. Yeah. So Adam says he sounds like a center. Doesn't draft tackles under. Zach Tom is an alien. Yes, I think he figured that out, right? So he's still 24 as a rookie, Brian. He's still 24 as a rookie. Still 24 as a rookie. So it's important to note. So they don't until they do. Oh yeah, we can here. Yeah, I did find this interesting because I think when you look at like what the two agreed on with Brugler and DJ, I don't think DeGene. I think DeGene was one of their big like discrepancies. So this is interesting. So to me, Brian, DeGene, I watched the last I this past week I've been doing a lot of stuff, making sure I'm ready just in case Green Bay gets eliminated tomorrow. That we have so much content in terms of like Green Bay fits and what positions and all that stuff. And so I've been watching a lot of guys. I watched 2 years of DeGene play. Okay. And I think I'm leaning more towards some of the guys last week. We're talking about some concerns a little bit, and I've highlighted a lot of them. I'm going to be dropping a scouting report video, no film unfortunately, but a scouting report video on strengths and weaknesses for DeGene next week. And like I think there are things that where there are alignments that he's better at than others, but he just might be a slot and safety player, and that's where they would have to play him. And I don't know if they're going to value him that highly if they think he's a slot and a safety guy, rather than a scheme versatile cornerback. That's the one thing I'm concerned about, because Barry has done a lot of different things, right? They've played single high, right? They've played some cover 3, but they've switched up. They've played quarters, they've played 4, they've played 2, right? They're doing different things defensively. If they stick with him, they gotta look at all these corners and go, okay, who's the most coverage versatile player that there is? Can we land him? I'm not sure DeGene is the guy. Just being honest. But if they view him as a versatile DB that can do a lot of different things, and they believe they're like, all right, he can do different things, but we have a set position for him. We know where he's going to play. Then they're going to do it. I'm just wondering if he's coverage versatile enough for them, right? And this is the thing. Cover 3 where he's asked and he can just turn and run, cool. If he's playing off where he can see the field and he's got a lot of field vision, his vision cone is wide, where he can pick stuff up and match and like pass off, I think he can do that. I think he's smart enough to do that. My question is like cloud coverage, if they're going to get into some man coverage looks, I'm not sure. I'm not sure cover 3 is his best, because there are times where he's got, he's in that side saddle, or sometimes they call it something else, and I forget what it's called. But where he's in side saddle technique, where his butt's to the sideline, and he's working in coverage that way, I think he struggles to transition a little bit. I think he struggles to anticipate a little bit. I think there's a lot of choppy stuff at the top for him to then transition. So I'm not sure he's even cover 3 might be a little, and the side saddle, yeah, the side saddle and the bail stuff. I don't know if he transitions well when he's in that. I don't know if he transitions that well. And that's my concern there with the cover 3, some of the cover 3 stuff. So like, I don't know. And side saddle bail's not often in cover 3, but there are times where you can get into those looks, and like there's a lot of times where you'll be looking at, and you'll have eyes on the QB. And I trust his eyes. I trust his anticipatory skills. My issue is in transition. Is he going to be good enough in transition? Because you watch him play corner, DeGene, and then you watch Terry and Arnold play corner, and you're like, holy smokes, this dude is way quicker, way more flexible, way more fluid as a coverage corner. And you're just like, oh, wow, holy smokes. You can tell the difference. You absolutely can. Trust me on this. You can tell the difference. So does Green Bay believe in what he can do and be the safety slot? Otherwise, I don't think they want to be cover 3 only, or insert coverage here only. If they're going to be coverage versatile, I don't know. So that'll be the real question. No. I don't know what you mean. I did not see it. Oh, is it the one he posted, Brian? Is it the one he posted? So yeah, we kind of covered the guard stuff and the 3-cone times and all the agility. I think Barton's gonna be really, really good with all the agility stuff. He looks the part, but like, will they go interior line? Right? Obviously, they haven't done it. Will they do it if it's BPA? Maybe. I don't know. We can't completely rule out everything here, but I think we can rule out is that Green Bay sees Barton as a tackle. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, Brian, and yeah. Dude's just I wish Green Bay was in position to draft him. There's no shot. We're not gonna get this guy. And like I watched 7 games of him over the last 2 days. Oh, please give me. Please. Please. Please, please, please. It's just not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. It sucks. Picking too late. Picking too late, Brian. Yeah, maybe Wiggins. If he's Brian, if he's 185, are we doing that? Are we doing that if he's 185? This is important. Important stuff right here. If he's 6'2", 185, are we doing that? Okay. That's the concern I have right there. Otherwise, if he's got enough weight on him, we're calm. We're calm. If Wiggins is there, I'm good with that. 100%. But Terrion Arnold, okay? Terrion Arnold, my guy is an enforcer in the run game. Tackling, defending the run. He takes on the block. He's trying to get off it. Dude is just physical beyond belief. If Green Bay moves up from 25 to like 19 and picks Terrion Arnold, I'm not going to be upset at all. At all, people. I will not be upset about that at all. But I don't think they're going to do it. It stinks. So that's the thing. Like Terrion Arnold is super duper. I feel like Brian, he probably could get there. He probably could get there. Emilio says put on the freshman 15. Yeah, I think if he gets to 195, we're cooking. If he's if my guy Wiggins is like 183 at the combine, it's over, folks. I promise. It is over. He's not going to be big enough for Goody, size-wise, which stinks. Because I like Wiggins. But maybe it could be, folks, it could be time. Just hop on the train right now, I promise. Just hop on the Quinion Mitchell train. Okay? 2 years of elite play at Toledo. Thinking that might be the guy. Okay, he's listed on PFF site at 6'1", 196. Okay, like that feels right in the wheelhouse. They're going to see him at the Senior Bowl, right? Like that's going to be, they'll be there. Like that feels like the guy right now to me, a DB where I'm like, yep, I think this makes sense. I think he's going to fit a lot of what they like. Instincts are pretty good overall, so I think he's going to fit. Uglum drafted him in a mock. I think Ben did as well. I don't know if Ben's still here. I know he was in here earlier. I think Ben's done that a few times as well. I think he could be it. And I know people are going to be upset about that because he's a MAC player, right? But hey, Khalil Mack was a MAC player too, out of Buffalo. Nobody cares then, right? So like, yeah, I think it's doable. I think it could very well happen. But also, Brian, I'm on the Cam Kinchens. I think I'm in on Cam Kinchens at 25. So yeah, Brooks was a MAC guy. There you go. Brooks was a MAC guy. It's perfect. I think they could do it because I think unless they're going to take Kinchens, I don't think they're going to take safety in the first. I don't think they will. Which is a little concerning because I'd like to be the first because it's not as Rod Moore going back hurt the safety class quite a bit. So it stinks. I wouldn't say I was off the train, Brian, per se. It's just when Green Bay was picking at like 10 or 12, I was not on board. But like 2020, if Kinchens is like 2022 Kinchens, we are locked and loaded. We are locked and loaded right there. Okay. That film is better than anybody else's film. Doesn't matter. Like Javon Bullard's film is good from Georgia. Tyler Nubin's film is good. Kinchens 2022 it's up here. It's off the screen. Like, hello. So, yeah, I'm fully on board at 25. I think there's a point in the draft in the first round where it's just kind of like, okay, premium position, blah, 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 premium position, blah. Just take the goods. Take the good guys at some point. Okay. Chris, I saw this question. I didn't forget about it, I promise. It says, what later round deep threat do you see Green Bay liking? Later round. That's good. That's a good question. Because if you saw this, right? Like This is somebody we were talking about these two guys because I think both guys are really, really good deep threats. I'm going to add DJ's mock back here really quick for this question. Obviously these guys aren't later round guys, but this was like, oh, if they're on day 2 and they really like this player as a deep threat, will they just pull the trigger and do it? They could do it. Like if he's just their best player available, they might. Tez Walker was that guy, I think, right? For North Carolina. He's got reliable hands. He's good winning above the rim at the catch point, but he's also got game-breaking speed. And like the stride length he has, if you turned everyone gray and you tried to like watch receivers over and over and you watched all the draft receivers, you could tell who Tez Walker is by how he runs. Yes. No, I'm fully on board with this take, Brian. I'm fully on board with this take. I'm sticking to this take. I've seen enough of him. I'm going to go back and finish the eval, but like I've seen enough where I'm like, yep, fast down the field, can win the ball in the air at times, pretty good tracker of it. The route break transitions are horrendous. Yep, Watson. Perfect. There you go. Like that's it. That's the one. So I think he kind of is. But if he's pushing up here, 29th already, we haven't even begun. We aren't going to get like, we're going to go to the Senior Bowl because he's down there as well. Tez Walker's the Senior Bowl, and they'll be like, oh, did you see how fast he was moving on the on the Zebra Technologies tracking tech? You see he was going 22 miles an hour. Once they see that, they're like, yeah, okay. It's like, all right. Chiefs are like, yep, on board completely. So Packer Kingdom, what's going on? I saw earlier your thing. You said you wish it was in Green Bay for San Francisco and you would feel better. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Do we use Aaron Jones like CMC? I don't think so. I don't think they're gonna fully positionless move him necessarily, but I do think Green Bay's in a really good position to run with him, right? Like they're gonna be able to gap run, zone running, right? Toss plays. I think they're gonna be able to outflank San Francisco a little bit and get him involved early in the run game, right? Shorten the game, limit San Francisco's possessions. I just don't think they're gonna completely flex him out wide and let him win one-on-one. Maybe they will. And maybe it's a to the point of like, it's kind of like, all right, we're drawing your attention this way. Wow, whoa, they're putting Aaron Jones out wide. What the heck is this? And like a Jaden Reed's in the backfield. I would love them to break out Jaden Reed in the backfield, lining up as a running back in the gun. Would love them to break that out this week. Don't know if they're going to do it, but I would like it. So I don't think they're going to completely do it, right, where they can line him up at receiver and like throw it to him. I don't think we're going to see that, but I think he could be involved in the throwback screen, right? They could break that out. They didn't break it out this past week against Dallas, but we know it's in the bag. We know it's there. I think CMC's always been a better pass catcher and more reliable pass catcher than Aaron Jones, but I do think Aaron Jones has been more efficient running the football on the ground than CMC. So I don't think it's going to be completely, but I do think that they'll probably give him a chance to make a play or two catching the football. But Brian says if Green Bay gets Arnold, Jake will take off the pants. Potentially. That's funny. I will be really excited if Green Bay takes Terry Arnold for sure. If they get the chance to, that would be sick. But yes, back to this crap. Where is that? Chris. Okay, Chris's question. So yeah, I mean, Tez Walker being here, that stinks. Troy Franklin, right? I don't think they're going to love the size. So I don't think he's going to be like a guy who's like on their board, right? Like, I just don't think he plays well through contact enough. But like, if you were to tell me like, all right, who's the player? I know who I want to say. I don't know if he's gonna. So later round, like I don't think Jermaine Burton from Alabama is gonna go in the later rounds. He probably won't. But I do like him a lot to win down the field from Alabama. I think he really found it this year, which is good for him. But I think he's going to probably play his way into day 2, and I think it's going to be kind of like, oh, well, maybe, and yeah, I don't think they're going to be in position to do it. That's a good question. Brian says Dayton Wade day 3 deep threat, non Green Bay, of course. No, man, it's hard to find. There were some guys that went back that I'm upset about because there weren't true deep threats. That's tough. That is tough. I'll get back to you on that, but I do think there are some guys that intrigue me that I'm like looking to because they graded out well down the field that I got to go check them out. Because I'm not some of these guys on the consensus boards. I'm always confused if they're in the draft or not. But like I would still highlight Jermaine Burton as one on like later day two, where you're like, oh, if he's the best player available, he could be on their board potentially and be that option. Rosemy Jack Saint for Georgia. Marcus Rosemy Jack Saint gets down the field pretty well. But he's still he's a pretty limited the vertical playing guy, but it's not impossible. It's just a lot of the deep threats. You don't get a lot of deep threats that are like kind of like, yes, this is enough within the size thresholds where Green Bay will take them. And that's the toughest thing about this. I will say a player I would love to have at receiver just in general for Green Bay, a player they probably won't end up drafting, but I really like him a lot, is Javon Baker from UCF, who was originally at Alabama. I mean, he had 52 for 1139 this year, which is 21.9 yards per reception, 7 touchdowns. He did drop the ball a little bit too much. He has 6 drops. Drop percentage is hovering around 10-12%, which isn't ideal. So like, but he did win 9 of 16 contested balls, which I think is nice. But I just really like, I really like the just how well rounded his skill set is. Like he is genuinely pretty well rounded overall, and I think that's. And he's like, he's lit. PFF has him listed at 6'1", 208, and that's to me like, okay, we're on board a little bit here, and like, I just think he's right now to me, and he's going to the Senior Bowl. I think he might be as underrated as anybody right now, and everybody's going to be like, and I think everybody's going to break this out, and you'll see it on Twitter in a couple weeks where it's like, oh, Tez Walker's the most underrated player in the draft. Troy Franklin, who I've already seen this, most underrated receiver in the draft. Xavier Worthy's the most underrated receiver in the draft. Adonai Mitchell's the most underrated receiver in the draft. It's like, man, we've known about these guys already. We know about this. Javon Baker, I feel like nobody else is talking about. But like maybe me, Brian, and Matt Waldman are like the only 3 right now that I've seen mention this fella. Okay. He really is. Brian, he's so detailed. In his approach as a route runner like this. Brian says, ability to get yak is underrated too. And he's averaging 22 yards per reception. And if he's listed at 6'1", 208 and he comes in at 6'1", 208, please, Green Bay. Oh, yes. Just do it, you know? Like, that would be sick. So, like, that would be the player to me I'm, like, be over the moon with as well if Green Bay drafted him. Because he makes big plays, but he's detailed in his approach in, like, every phase of the game. And that's really exciting. So, you could probably expect a Javon Baker film room on the channel at some point. So, I'm sure he'll be on the side. I'm sure he'll be on the channel at some point. And I will put this out. So, really quick for those who are in here next week, if tomorrow night is indeed the end of the season, even if it isn't, I'll be posting scouting reports, little 3 to 5 minute videos on a lot of the top prospects, but we'll have a film room or 2 next week on some guys that I think you guys will be interested in. I'm not going to say who it is right now, but one of them might have been a Green Bay pick in a big media member mock recently. So that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. And if you guess an SEC or Big Ten player, it's incorrect because got to be careful with those schools. Blew a kiss to the Oklahoma sideline too. Dude just oozing confidence, and he's just really, really talented. I like him quite a bit. So, you know, that'll be interesting to see how he does down in the Senior Bowl, where he lands, because good player, in my opinion. Well, if there's nothing else, you know, we could go over what Brugler had in the mock that he did. He did a 2-round mock this week, but I covered it on the pod. So if some of you listen to the podder and you're like, don't do it, that's fine. Otherwise, any last minute questions, or we might just get out of here a little bit earlier than usual and be, you know, last week we were like a 2 and a half hour show. This year maybe it's a little shorter. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. Oh yeah, Brian W did say this too. I saw this. They says we want to see quarterbacks and wide receivers and edge rushers go off the board. I mean, truthfully, I would not like to see Malik Neighbors go off the board, Brian. But yes. Ideally for Green Bay, 5 quarterbacks come off before they pick, right? Like 5 QBs coming off the board, and you're like, all right, nice. Push guys down, right? There'll probably be a few tackles, maybe 4. There might be 4 or 5 tackles off the board before Green Bay picks, maybe even 6. And I know that people are going to be upset about that, but like I think based on who we've seen, who it is, the guys that like Alton Fashanu, they're probably not going to get either one, right? Those guys would fit for sure. And then it's like Fontenot, like kind of pseudo fits, but not quite. And he would probably be a guard for Green Bay, but I really like him at tackle. Like that's the one guy that would be upset with coming off the board. Like I'll say this again: Mims, Fuaga, and Latham are probably not going to be on Green Bay's board. Those 3 probably won't be on it. So you can have those guys can go off. Tyler Guyton, same thing from Oklahoma. He can go off the board. Green Bay will not do that. Like they won't go that route. But yeah, edge rushers, I think there'll probably be 4 that'll be off. Maybe not. We'll see. Chop Robinson's polarizing, so we'll see about that. But I do think there'll probably be 4 or 5 receivers off potentially. The corners might run, which stinks. That stinks. It's like 19 where Green Bay was at before the playoffs started, and you're like, oh, they made the playoffs. They're 19th in the order. You're kind of like, all right, perfect. This is where like the cornerback run's going to kind of almost finish. And you're like, all right, they should be able to get one they like. Now they're 25th. We'll see how it goes, but like there's a chance that the cornerback run starts and kind of ends before they get a chance to do it. However, Daniel Jeremiah did post in the mock. We just went over it, of course, where Kool-Aid McKinstry goes 31st and Nate Wiggins goes 30th. And you're like, okay, well, there were guys on the board, and Gene went 27th. So it's possible the cornerback run starts later. The media seemingly says that's what's going to happen. So it's very possible, but obviously right now, Brugler and DJC, Terry Arnold is corner 1, and it's hard to disagree with them. So Turtle says, welcome, first off. I don't know if we've seen you in here. Not often, if so. He says, I'm in the Bay currently, and it's pouring. I assume that means in the Bay in San Francisco, which is, I don't know if a wet field condition is good for the game. So not great. But I imagine that I think their field, it seems like, is usually in pretty darn good condition. So maybe it's not even a grass field, but I thought it was. And so like I feel good, maybe the weather hurts Purdy a little bit if it rains during the game, and but Jordan Love's got the big hands, right? Can handle some weather stuff, and maybe that's an advantage. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we're like 23 hours from game time. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. So there's Joy. Welcome. How we doing? Says, I think the 49ers D line's going to be the main worry. Yeah, I think pressure is going to be a problem, but I think you can often neutralize some of that, right, with running the ball really well, forcing them into conflict of, am I defending the run or am I rushing the passer, right? And staying out of obvious situations where they're going to bring an extra guy or they're going to be able to tee off. My main worry is, truthfully, is linebacker play. I think I was talking about this earlier, that I was like, okay, I think linebacker play is going to determine a lot of things, because it's going to be how Green Bay, kind of how Green Bay presents conflict in the passing game with short routes, crossers, and all that stuff to try to open up the deep and middle part of the field. If they can create that conflict for Warner and Greenlaw, they're going to be able to take advantage. And then for Green Bay, it's going to be a lot of like, okay, can you be in the run fit correctly? Can you get to your spots in coverage? Can you read the quarterback's eyes? Can you maybe muck up some reads for him and make a play? Like, I think linebacker play is going to be huge in this game, which unfortunately does not favor the Packers. But I think that it's going to be a main part. But the D line, obviously, with when you got 4 studs on it, like that clearly, it's a big deal, right? But I do think like Love has the trick shot artist in him, right? Like off the back foot, like in pressure in your face, throwing some just absolute missiles off your back foot and accurately, like that to me is he was able to figure that out. And like that's something that like Cousins kind of did as well. If you watch back the game where the Vikings beat the Niners, is Cousins in play action was kind of like getting pressured a little bit, and he kind of had to let it go a little bit early, but it was on target, it was precise, and it kept the chains moving and kept that offense on the field, and they were able to succeed. So Yeah, so I think, we will see. Brian says, where do you see Ladarius Henderson playing in the league? Man, I feel like it has to be at guard. I feel like he was at his best, especially as a pass protector, Brian. I think he was at his best at guard when he was at Arizona State, right? Like, I feel like, I don't know. It looked overwhelming to him at tackle. I was kind of surprised, like, that Michigan was just kind of like, yeah, he's gonna be left tackle. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That seems like it was. I think it was a lot on his plate, and he just yeah. I just don't think he can play out there. And I know he's got some tackle build to him a little bit, where he's PFF, I think, lists him in like the teens somewhere. It might be like 318 or something, whatever it is. And where it's like, oh, he's got some tackle body to him, but it's like you watch him play and you're like, he's a guard. Like, I don't think he can handle it at tackle. I don't think he can hack it. Which is, again, not everybody can, right? Tackle's a hard position to play. Like, guard, you can, there's some thing, and I'm not saying guard's an easy position to play per se, but like, he just seems like he's in more control when he's playing guard, and he's got a lot of snaps at guard, and he's got some decent bit of snaps at left tackle. I know he's played left tackle and left guard, but I feel like it just looks more comfortable for him at left guard. So, wow, he's got 34, 35-inch arms. That'll help at left guard for sure. That'll help for sure at left guard against pass rushing defensive tackles. There's no doubt. I just don't know. I don't think the technique's very good. I don't think he's got like enough of the qualities where you look at it, you go like, that's a left tackle, and you just look at him and you're like, I just don't. This is a struggle. Like, he's finding a way to figure it out sometimes, but like other times he's just getting beat and blown off the ball, and like, I don't know. Ohio State game and Bama game, I just didn't love what he did. It was not very good to me. I don't know about the Washington game. I haven't seen it from his perspective yet, but like, I think that it's going to be better for him to be inside. Here's Joyce says, I trust Ayuk and Samuel will be covered enough, but Kittle is the wild card. Yeah, and this is the thing, and this is where it's like, okay, middle of the field, how are we handling it? I just don't know. It feels like a big Kittle game, and it has often been. I think the last two matchups for Green Bay and San Francisco, Kittle was the leading receiver. So I think it was the last two, and so like, he just shreds them, and like, that's middle field linebackers in potential coverage where there are some spots where Quay Walker might have to be in like true coverage against Kittle, and then that's that's a little concerning. Not gonna lie. Ryan says our boy Roberts doesn't like chop. Yeah, I get like sometimes his strike point, he doesn't quite hit it in contact. When he gets to contact, he doesn't quite hit the right strike point, and he often just gets pushed to the side. Athletically and explosiveness wise, he's really, really good. But I think consistently at the point where you're like, okay, can I be able to trim the edge? Can I get to a move? Can I find my way to QB? Sometimes he just gets blown off his track, and like, that is the issue. Adam says Greenlaw to be out, but he probably played through injury. Yeah, I imagine so. Arizona says the rain could affect Love's back foot off platform throws where the ball won't zip as much for sure. He's going to need to not get too wild in the pocket with that D line. Maybe moving the platform plays could help. Possibly. I just think being under center is going to be the biggest key. I staying away from shotgun as much as possible, I think, is going to be what Green Bay has to do. They need to be under center. They need to have the threat of everything going on to really succeed on offense. And you saw that. And Love's probably going to take a shot or two. He took a shot or two in the Dallas game. He's probably going to take a few shots in this one. He's going to have to deliver. So, Antonio, hello, Antonio, says the Pack will use more press coverage and stunts to disrupt Niners timing. There are times where, I'm trying to think who did. I think Cleveland did some stunts and like mucked things up for pass protection, which they might have to do. But like, truthfully, and like, the problem is like, we were talking about this earlier, Antonio, and it's kind of describing what defenses had to do to stop the Niners on that losing streak. And it's just kind of like, the Browns were in nickel a ton, and they were able to get stops against the run, and they were able to just play man coverage across the board because they could just match up with their guys. And like that, the Browns defense they were able to match up. They had the personnel to do it. Right? They have a linebacker in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah who can cover tight ends. They have, Denzel Ward. They have Martin Emerson. They have Greg Newsome, and they could cover guys. They didn't have a problem in man coverage. They made the throwing windows a little bit tougher on Purdy, and that's what worked. I don't think the Packers are going to be in single high a lot because I don't know if they think they have the personnel in man coverage to handle guys like that, which that leaves you with zone coverage, and that leaves the middle of the field, I think, is the biggest concern with Kittle, maybe with a Debo like that. I feel like that's going to be the concern. So we'll see. I think they got to try a lot. They got to try things. They got to try things that they believe can work. Maybe it's press, maybe it's stunts. They got to try something. And the biggest thing is they're going to have to win some one-on-one matchups against from left guard to right tackle. The Niners offensive line is average. It's average. You need to be able to win your one. Clark, Wyatt, Gary, if he's on that side, Van Ness, if he's on this side, they're going to have to win one-on-one matchups. They're going to have to. There are going to be times where maybe you're getting into a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, and there's going to be a time where you go, okay, Wyatt, like, buddy, it's now. Now it is, and to quote Kevin Green, of course, it is time. Like, it's going to be that type of, like, key down where you're like, okay, Wyatt just needs to beat this dude, run him right back into Purdy, get Purdy off his spot, and then maybe somebody else cleans it up, or he cleans it up himself. You're going to have to kill a drive at some point somehow. You're going to have to stop the momentum. You're going to have to cut the drive short somehow, right? Like that. They're going to have to do that. So we'll see if they can get it done that way. Yeah, Kittle, it really is going to be the ultimate test, he says, to see how strong or lack thereof we are linebackers. Say, yep. Kittle is a good litmus test for a lot of that. Brian says Roberts doesn't like chop size. That's interesting. Chop modern day Aaron Maben. Maybe. These Penn State guys are always going to test well. They're going to test well. So Packers Kingdom says we are almost healthy and use motion. Yeah. I don't think my concern is as much with the offense, truthfully, in this game. You can run the ball in the Niners. You look at the Browns, Vikings, and Bengals during that losing streak for the Niners. They all ran the ball extremely, extremely well and in different ways. Bengals did it out of shotgun. The other two did it under center a lot. They're getting toss plays. They're getting the perimeter. They're running zone. They're running gap scheme. They're doing a lot of different things with the run game to give the Niners a lot to think about in the run game, and they were successful. Motion's obviously going to help. I think they're going to be able to find ways to scheme up the middle of the field that it's going to be open, and they're going to have to take advantage. And I the concern is defensively. Can you get early down run stops, or is McCaffrey going to rush for 250? It's kind of going to be. It's a big part of it. Brian says he's got a new video drop Monday. Well, there you go. The Packer Way is his channel on YouTube. There you go. Senior Bowl guys, Packers could be interested in. Probably a good one. Probably a good one to check out. I don't think we're going to talk about Senior Bowl too much until we'll have like a full week on the channel here to talk about a lot of the Senior Bowl. We'll have a live show that will just cover the Senior Bowl. But I don't know if we're going to do that until the conference championship games end. And then we'll have live shows live from Mobile. Just to let you know. We will be live from Mobile after practices. Not sure how long after practices, but that's Senior Bowl. We're going to have a lot of content here. So Ayers Joyce says, what I liked about the Cowboys game a lot was how much consistency and continuity there was in just keeping the run game going and not letting it go cold. Yeah, LaFleur committed to the run. That was a big deal. I agree. I think he's going to have to do it again. And I think that commitment is going to have to be there's going to have to be more commitment to it. There's going to have to be a determination to commit to it in this game, because I think Dallas, you've seen it, right? Like Dallas, you can just straight up push around. We saw it. Like you can push them around. Bills did it. Dolphins did it. Like Green Bay just did it. You push them around the run game. San Francisco's not going to get extremely pushed around the run game, but you can do it. And there are going to be times where Aaron Jones is maybe running for -2 yards, or you're just not getting what you would hope to get from the run game, and you cannot abandon it. You can't abandon the run game. If LaFleur abandons the run game, it's over. If they're in the gun a bunch, it's over. Now, Cleveland did get into some empty looks, and it worked. Minnesota got into a few, but they have Hawkinson, and Hawkinson just got open because he was really, really good at reading the leverage with some option routes and finding space. Maybe Kraft can do that. Maybe Green Bay's got somebody who can do that. But I prefer they don't be an empty in the shotgun a lot in this game. They need to be under center, and that commitment is going to be crucial. So there you go. Before we get out of here, quick, because I think we're going to out of here in a few minutes. We're hour 40. But what I wanted to do is let's drop some score predictions in the chat. And so I'll tell you my score prediction already. I got 34-26 Niners. I think it's going to be, put it this way, I think it's going to be Niners by 8. I think that's going to be the margin. And I'm just not sure if the defense and the linebacker position is going to be able to take care of business. That's with McCaffrey in the run game, with Kittle in the passing game, I'm just a little concerned. So I'm gonna pick the Niners, and that's where I've stood. So drop some predictions in chat. Drop your final questions. We're getting out of here in a few minutes. Where's this? Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Kraft home run screenplay. Did that? The Bengals ran a lot of. So the Browns ran some tight end screen against San Francisco. It was effective. The Vikings just let Hawkinson cook middle of the field, underneath option routes. They had him late release a couple times to get some 5-6 yard gains. And I think like he did a really good job with that. Like Hawkinson just dominated that game. And the Bengals got the ball, the tight ends got the ball in the quick game, got the ball out wide, right? They were running wide receiver screens. They were stretching them a lot horizontally, and that made a difference in that game for them. So, yeah, I think, yards after catch are going to be a big thing in this game. I believe that as well offensively. And you've got Reed, you've got Watson, you've got Dobbs, right? You have Kraft like that. That's going to be a big part of it for sure. So there you go. Wow, there's gonna be guys. What the positivity last week was huge, and we're not on the train this time. I understand though. It's San Francisco's a different beast, man. Completely a different beast. Chris says Niners 34, Pack 24. Okay. Adam's got 35-24 Niners. Cody's got 34-30 Niners. Pretty much everybody's on board that the Niners are getting over 30 points. It's gonna take another incredible effort offensively for Green Bay to get it done. And that's I agree. I think it's going to take a really, really good performance. And they're hot, but it's going to take a really, really good performance offensively again to get this done. Here's Joy. What they could do is let Kraft cook while the run game goes and get a couple Musgrave deep throws off of play action. I got Packers if we could get Watson and Musgrave a couple successful shots. There were a couple chances where Here's Joy, and I know you don't want to go back before the show ends, but I talked about it from I think the 10-ish minute mark, 12-ish minute mark to a 35-minute mark about what Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincinnati did in depth on both sides of the ball. So for any of you who joined later and want to go back to that, 10 minutes-ish to 35 minutes is where we really get in depth on how each offense from those three teams, Cleveland, Minnesota, Cincinnati, all from the Shanahan-McVay tree, by the way, how they did offensively, how they got wins offensively, and how their defenses did as well. And that was a big part of this. So it would be a shootout for sure. Yeah. If they can get a couple successful shots, I did put this the Browns kind of let Amari Cooper be Amari Cooper a couple times to get big plays, and that helped them offensively for sure. Adam says Niners cornerback 2 and safeties are just okay. Hopefully Green Bay can score. Yeah, if they can get them in, and that was the other part. I didn't really bring this up, but if they can get the Niners into nickel personnel, they're going to be able to win, I think, in the slot with whoever they have there. Reed, Wicks, Dobbs, whoever's in the slot. I think they're going to have chances to win there if they can get into that. But that obviously, when you're in 11, it's a lot more shotgun, right? Not as much under center. It's a trade-off. Right, but there's going to be motion, I think, involved when they're in 11, so that'll be good. But it's going to be a fun game. I do, and just remember, I think the biggest thing for Packers fans, and yeah, obviously, you're going to be upset. It's fair to be upset if they lose, but just remember, it's a big deal for this unit, this young unit, to be in the final 8 teams. That's incredible. I promise, as well, if the Texans lose tomorrow, I know their fans are going to be upset, but they're my gosh, we got Stroud and Anderson, we got Tank Dell, and we got, I know we gave up some capital to do it, but like we can, build this team out. We've got a young team. We can take steps, and like the Houston Texans are gonna be the same way. Green Bay, they think of the same way. Difference is Green Bay's got a heck of a lot more capital than Houston does. Green Bay, if they had lost last week, had the fourth most draft capital of anybody. They were the only team in the top 8 in draft capital that made the playoffs. They're set up well. They're set up really well here to take advantage. Stuff's going to be coming off the books. There's going to be contracts they can maybe get off the books. They're in a really nice position right now. So if it doesn't work out tomorrow night, darn it, we'll be back next year, hopefully. I know it's hard to win, so it's nice to ride hot streaks like this, but this is a team that's young and they're built. They're built well. So we'll see if they can get it done. If you want to drop any last minute predictions there in the chat, if anybody wants to pick the Packers, cool. But thank you guys so much. Obviously tonight, we're a little under the 2-hour mark, but I figured it may be a little bit shorter. But I appreciate, Chris, Brian W, obviously Brian Maffey, Adam, Ben was in here earlier as well. I saw Tim in here. I saw Goose, right? Emilio, United Bates. And then there were a few people who were new, which was really cool. Packers Kingdom was in here. Few others that I'm trying to find as I'm scrolling down through a million comments because I want to cut. So Turtles, as they said, they're in the Bay. Airs Joy was obviously here as well. Antonio. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice. Cody, of course. So yeah, I think it was really nice to have you guys in here. It was really it's always fun. These are always fun on Fridays. We're not getting rid of this. I know there was no like NFL draft live this week. I just didn't know where it was going to go. I want to set up some guests for that show, especially because it's more structured and we can get through a lot more info in those. But this weekend I'm gonna grind, get a lot more evaluations done so we can really jump in to the draft going forward. So thank you guys so much. I'll really quickly hit on a few of these here at the end. Airs Joy says, if I'm green, Chris, did you just put in a different score prediction? That's hilarious. I love it. Okay. Airs Joy says, if I'm Green Bay, I'm trading back from that second round spot for sure. Not overly impressed with the top end of the draft. I think the top end of the draft just doesn't quite match what Green Bay wants right now. Corner, yeah. But I do think it's another. I feel like every draft says this. If you have more swings in that 20 to 80 area, you're golden because you're going to get a lot of surplus value there. Every position, really, but quarterback, you're going to get a lot of value, and it's worth doing for sure. Cody says, with no number one wide receiver in the ball being spread around a ton, what wide receiver is going to be the go-to guy? I assume you mean on Saturday, tomorrow. To me, I think the leading receiver this week is going to be Reed or Watson. I think it's going to be one of those two guys. So that's my guess. Obviously, Dobbs was cooking last week. It could be Wicks, but I just think the players with more burst and explosiveness and Reed and Watson are going to be big time in this game. So I'll pick one of those two. Chris just put in, like I said, Packers 38, Niners 28. That's funny. Says unless you're top 10, but then you want to get back further. Yeah, that's often how it goes for sure. There's no doubt about it. Well, I'm gonna get out of here, get some dinner, and then gonna be grinding in the film room with some prospects. So it should be a loaded week content wise next week on here, and not just live shows. So we'll be back at it for sure. For sure. Like I said, there's going to be, my guess would be there's going to be at least 5 kind of the shorter version, 3 to 5 minute scouting reports where it's just discussion and kind of talking about the player. And there might be, there might be 2-ish film rooms on prospects next week. And we'll probably start like the Packers rookie review series if they don't win tomorrow night. And then I've got a couple surprises in there as well, but it's going to be loaded. Content's going to be flying out of here. So there'll be plenty to watch next week. Thank you guys. Thanks, Adam. And thanks. Enjoy for sure. Reed does run surprisingly strong. Yeah. He's got a little bit of Randall Cobb in him. He really does. But yeah, thank you guys all so much. Appreciate you guys having you all in the chat. I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game. Enjoy divisional weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend of football either way. And there's only 7 games left in the season, so enjoy every single one of them. Then we'll hit draft season, so that'll be good. And Chris says, good pod. Also appreciate the dono at the end there, the $5. Adam, Adam, I'll send you the pod link as soon as I'm off here. So thank you guys so much again. And extra, obviously, thanks to Chris for the $5. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week, Weekly Cheddar on Friday. Maybe an NFL Draft Live. We'll see when that's going to be scheduled. We'll figure that out. But thank you guys so much, and take it easy.